So good morning, everyone. I just want to welcome all of you to the call and very excited to have you be part of this call. For those that are brand new, this is a weekly event that we have. We try to, we say give us 28 minutes, we'll give you all the different things that we're discussing. Sometimes it goes a little longer. What this is all about is advocacy. We know that it's very important to have a seat at the table. If we're not at the table, we're probably on the menu. And this is in reference to anything going on in your business. So we have a chair of this event, which is our chair for our Legislative Action Committee, and his name is Jeff Miller. And I'm going to properly introduce him in just a second or two. But these calls are also on our YouTube channel. They're able for you to play back and listen to. And what we try to do is really dissect things on down so that you have an opportunity to better understand all the different things that are being proposed by various legislators. We don't look at people with a different initial behind their name. We simply are looking how we can best impact and in a positive way for our business community. So we're very fortunate that we have our local representatives that plug into the call regularly. But I want to now properly introduce Mr. Jeff Miller, who is a former elected state assembly member. When he served in the state assembly, he worked with both sides of the aisle. He talked to people like he's going to talk today and share with you common sense, how it is. He understands what it takes to operate a business. He also, during that time that he was assembly member, he owned and operated his own insurance business. He, prior to being on the state assembly, before retiring from that, he was our city mayor and city council member here in Corona, all along doing double duty by running a small business, hiring people, employing people, creating jobs for people, helping people on the other side, all his clients that had businesses and had employees. So Jeff probably is the perfect person to kind of handle this kind of discussion, because he gets it. He understands exactly what each and every one of us are going through as business owners. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our chair of our Legislative Action, Mr. Jeff Miller.
Thank you, Bobby. Good morning, everybody. I appreciate the very kind introduction, and I hope everybody's having a great summer. Let's get right into it. Today's meeting is sponsored by UFC Gym. They have over 150 locations. UFC Gym is the world leader of MMA-inspired fitness. Rooted in authenticity, they are an extension of the UFC and are proud to make the training programs of MMA athletes available to all. Join their inclusive community of like-minded fitness enthusiasts and train differently. Thank you, UFC Gym, for sponsoring the meeting. There's a little chat button on the bottom of the screen. Feel free to use that if you want to ask any questions of the chamber host or me or whoever. Yep, there's a slide. Okay. Before I introduce Anthony, I just want to give, I appreciate Brad West from our Assembly Member's office, Assembly Member Sabrina Cervantes' office on the call. Brad, do you have any updates from her office?
Yes. So probably, as Jeff is going to touch on, legislature's in session right now. The Assembly members in floor session pretty much all day yesterday. So bills are moving fast. Lots of things are happening right now. One I want to highlight from Assembly Member Sabrina Cervantes is AB 2466, which was passed the Assembly yesterday with the Senate amendments. And essentially what this does is streamlines foster adoption policies for LGBTQ foster parents, making sure that it's no more difficult to adopt a child in California if you are an LGBTQ couple looking to adopt a child than if you are a non-LGBTQ couple trying to adopt a child. Additionally, it gets rid of some interesting language. There's a special legal category for certain children in the foster system. They call them hard to place children. And before the passage of this bill, any LGBTQ foster child was categorized as hard to place. We just felt like that was kind of antiquated, not really in step with where California is now. So We made sure to remove that language for any LGBTQ kids going through the foster system. So we're really proud of this, hoping that the governor is able to sign it into law. And that's all I got so far.
Great. Thank you, Brad. Appreciate you coming on the call. Now I'd like to introduce Anthony Maldonado for updates and announcements.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Let me get this back on here. All right, perfect. So there are just two things that I want to touch on today. One of them is actually tomorrow. That is the Women's Leadership Conference. As you know, our 11th annual Women's Leadership Conference is tomorrow. We are very excited. We have been prepping and planning for many months now, and it's going to be an awesome event. Online registration has closed, but if you still want to attend, feel free to stop by tomorrow at 7 a.m. You can buy a ticket at the door. As I just mentioned, 7 a.m. is the start time with a light breakfast, networking, and a chance to visit all the amazing exhibitors that we have. I believe we have over 35 exhibitors that are going to be in attendance tomorrow. So it is going to be a really great networking opportunity. And then the inspirational program really kicks off at 8 a.m. Amazing speakers lined up. If you want to check out the speaker lineup, I will post the website in the chat so you can see all of the amazing speakers that we have. And just a reminder, it is going to be held at North Point Church tomorrow. So we did have that change in location, but it is now at North Point Church. The other event that I wanted to touch on today is the Remembrance Vigil. If you know Bobby, then I'm sure you know his grandson, RJ. RJ is becoming a bar mitzvah, and a part of that process is to complete a community impact project. Well, RJ chose a very special project, and we are hoping you can all attend. He has organized a remembrance and candlelight vigil honoring the 13 soldiers who were killed 1 year ago. This will be held at the George Ingalls Memorial Plaza in Norgo tomorrow night at 7 p.m. So tomorrow is going to be full of some great events. If you can stop by, we would really appreciate that. It's free to attend. And I know this community was greatly impacted last year by this tragedy that struck not only these 13 soldiers, but our community as well. As one of those soldiers was a part of this deeply rooted community. So again, if you can all stop by, that would be greatly appreciated. RJ has put some tremendous time and energy into organizing this, and we would love to support him as well as those families that lost their loved ones. So that is all I have for now. Back to you, Jeff.
Great. Thank you, Anthony. Okay. As always, I'd like to thank our nonprofits that join our call. Nonprofit organizations in our city are so important to the fabric of our community. And obviously Peppermint Ridge is one of those. They do wonderful work. Thank you, Jim and Danny, for coming on the call. If you want to plug in your contact information, if anybody wants to get involved, help, donate, they'll have your contact. So thank you very much. With that, I'd like to introduce our legislative consultant, Jeff Gibson from Occidental Communications Group. For 35 years, Jeff has specialized in areas of government affairs, political campaigns, government affairs, and government relations. He has specialized in areas relating to housing and transportation and environment. Just to name a few, he was the author of Jessica's Law back in 2006. Jeff Gibson, it's all yours.
Thank you, guys. So we are in zombie season. I know it's August. I know a few people are starting to think about Halloween. I know the Halloween stores are showing up in every single mall. And in that vein, there are 2 zombie bills that have been reintroduced to the legislature. They had previously been killed. And in one case, it's a total and complete gut amend. Generally, the gut and amend, traditionally, going back almost 40 years now, has been reserved for a very specific business problem. So in one particularly what is considered egregious case, the assembly leadership decided at the time that a certain brand of spa drains needed to be legalized in the state of California. And shortly after it was legalized, unfortunately, a small child was held underneath the surface of the water and tragically drowned because of the action of a gut and amend bill. That's one particularly egregious action. But whether or not a tragedy occurred because of a gut and amend, they were generally reserved for bills that insiders were interested in. In this case, these bills are likely to do things like remove millions of cars from the road permanently with no ability to add additional cars to the road. And in one estimate, you're looking at 17 million cars removed from the road by 2030. So let's get into them. These are two of the most this is very, very serious. So AB 1395, California Climate Crisis Act. It was unanimously killed in the Senate last year with Senator Roth voting to put it on the inactive file. That is one of the ways that you kill a bill. So 37 people out of 40 in the Senate, which is bitterly and very, very divided, decided to vote together on a bipartisan basis to kill this bill. It is back. Assembly member Cervantes, when it was in the Assembly, was one of a number of members that did not that had no vote recorded on it, and it passed out of the Assembly 42 with a bare 42 vote minimum. So you have a bill that limped out of the Assembly, and why is it that you see that? Well, it takes what previously had been administrative policy to seek carbon neutrality by 2050 as a state, and you put it into legislation. You legislate it for 2045. Then you add on top of it an entirely regulatory scheme to where every single organization in the state will have to start to report all of its activities, and including the number of employees it has, and categorize every single task they do based upon how much carbon is produced. So looking at a number of you on the Zoom, you've got printers. Those printers would then, printers and computers and paint on your wall and all of those different items, those would all go into what this bill is. And it would require that you as a private citizen prove every year and in everything that you do that we are carbon neutral by 2045. So if you think 87,000 IRS agents who are qualified to use deadly force is going to make us a more equitable society, wait until you see the forms that you have to file to prove that the carbon dioxide that you produce naturally by just breathing while on this phone call can be offset. So that's going to be an exciting time, and we hope to first make it a little bit more exciting by helping kill this bill. But the governor has not only said that he would sign it, he has urged the legislature, which again, one house barely passed it out. The second house unanimously killed it. It is now back, and it didn't even get many amendments. And so it's for consideration in the Senate. And if it stays in its current form, it will only need to get through, it was on the floor of the Senate, so it will only need to get through a floor vote there and go back for, it doesn't even need to go back for concurrence based upon the lack of substantial amendments. So this is a very, very serious bill. Carbon neutrality has is, as you've seen for the first time in its history, the euro is trading below the dollar. And the reason it's doing that is because Europe as a zone decided to go on a carbon neutral path and is facing a winter in which the German people are asked to bathe with a hand towel and not use hot water because they can't even have the natural gas available to heat a teapot. So this is what we're facing, and we will be working to obviously defeat this bill because it's already come up for hearings. It has already gone through a very tough process. It has already been rejected in the public process. Now legislators are saying, well, in the last 6 days of the legislature, we can go ahead and completely and totally redefine the economic relationships that each of us have worked on for all of these years. So happy to answer any questions that you may have on this before we move on.
Thank you, Jeff. We do have one question. Can
Yes.
the bill be back if it went to the inactive file, essentially killing it? And this is on AB 1395.
Yes. Yes, it can, by ruling of the chair. Almost anything, and Assembly member, you can back this up. If you have the gavel, you is the rules. And that is precisely, they went into the inactive file and reactivated. So, yep. Were you chomping at the bit to say something, Jeff?
You know, just, yeah, I mean, the speaker has the power to do anything and everything. They run the whole place. And if this becomes whatever becomes a priority, whether it's the governor's desire to pass something or a lobbyist or industry that needs to pass something, once it rises to that level of interest, they can pretty much do whatever they want. So it sounds like this is, Jeff, this is a gut and amend 1395.
No, 1395 is just straight up, it's back. And
they just brought it back. Okay.
yeah, it is the rarest of the rare pure zombies of, 2 months ago, you voted unanimously to kill this bill. Now you're going to come back and we'll all pretend that it's different. But no, in that bill, because of the subject matter and because of how controversial it is, my guess would be that they're not going to do many amendments to it. They're just going to, there's going to be a big push. Obviously, the governor has asked for the reintroduction. So you already know that you have a governor's signature. It's part of a larger environmental package. The Sacramento Bee today has been doing a series of exposés on the governor and the moves he's making for running for president in 2024. So the good news is for everyone on this call that the likelihood that there's going to be a blackout over the next 2 years is very, very low. So plan those elective surgeries, plan those emergency room trips, plan anything that it requires power to be conducted in the next 18 months to 2 years while the governor is campaigning for president. The downside is that he is going to need all of the groups that are backing things like carbon neutrality as a country. He's going to want to be appealing to them, and the way that he appeals to them is by experimenting on the California economy just to see what works and what doesn't. So four recent governors have run for president. I think we can all agree if Arnold Schwarzenegger weren't barred by the Constitution from running for president, we probably would have seen him in Iowa too. And only one has made it. So it's not much of a batting average, but we will see how the rest of the country responds to that, and we'll keep track of it. But in any case, I saw something else. Go ahead.
Yeah. So just to confirm, this does not need to go back for concurrence to the assembly? Okay.
No.
So it's important for us to make sure Mr. Roth knows our position.
It's critically important. Absolutely. It's vitally important for people to call Senator Roth and say, the first time it came before him on September 10th, 2021, which was close to the end of session, he did not have a vote recorded, which is not unusual on a bill like this. The bill failed. Under reconsideration, on a 37-0 vote, they placed it on the inactive file. So there's three things that could have gone on. You could have voted no, which would have completely killed the bill. You could have put it on in the inactive file, which most majority party legislation goes on. Very rarely are you going to get to the floor of the opposite house as a member of the majority and have that house actually kill your bill. It's going to be referred instead to the inactive file. It's basically a courtesy, so it's not unusual at all. And in that he voted 37-0 on so the options before him were yes, no, or inactive, and they went with inactive. So he could have voted in favor of it then. And so it's been sitting there for 11 months, and it is back. It is risen from the dead and is, as the picture, hopefully you can see there on the slide, it is pounding on the door, wanting to get in and measure all of the things that you do by the carbon dioxide that you notionally or realistically produce. So yes, that is the case.
So we're kind of in the weeds for the government geeks that kind of like this stuff. But this is really how
it's going to have one. Yeah. So basically it's going to have one vote. This whole thing comes down to one vote in the Senate.
So later in our meeting, I'm going to put up a slide with our assembly member and our senator's contact information. It's real simple. All you need to do is call their office and say, this is Jeff Miller. I'm a constituent. I own an insurance agency in Senator Roth's district. I want him to know that I strongly oppose AB 1395 for a variety of reasons, and please make record of that. And so that's as basic as you need to do. Every office, and Brad will probably shake his head, they all track this stuff. They know every call that comes in, every email that comes in, every fax that comes in. And it's very simple just to call and say, here's who I am, here's where I feel, please vote no. And you've done.
One of the things I really want to underline is to be respectful. Senator Roth is not, and the Assembly Member Cervantes, they're not authors or co-authors of this legislation. It is just coming before them. They're working literally 18 hours a day. Their staff are working very, very hard this month. So, and we are trying to get them to understand our policy position. So as frustrating as it may seem to you from time to time, just call and give as simple, just as Jeff said, right? I'm calling to ask for the senator to vote no on AB 1395. He's voted no on it previously. We are asking for his vote on that again. And my name is, and I'm a constituent. And I love the climate, but this we cannot do. So something along that line, because you're trying to get them to, you're not going to get a fair hearing from people that are working 18 hours a day, have 900 pieces of legislation to consider between now and August 31st. I mean, there's 1 week left in the legislature, and there's over 700 bills left. So you're just not going to get a lot of that, but they do track. So this is very, very important. The second item is AB 2133, which up until yesterday was a labor bill that was working its way through the process. And today is the California Global Warming Solutions Act of 2006. Yay! I know we were all concerned in 2006 about global warming, and we were told if we implemented a series of actions that by 2022, a mere 16 years later, that we would have no more climate change. But here we are in 2022, and lo and behold, the climate continues to change. So instead of throwing up their hands and saying perhaps more legislation was the wrong way to do this, we should go about it another way, the legislature has decided, nope, we need more legislation. So we're going to, instead of and California started this process in the last century, in 1999, by requiring the state to have fewer carbon emissions than 1990. It was the baseline. And 1990 was the baseline because the Davis administration saw that that was the lowest carbon emissions that the state had produced in some time, because we were mired in a deep recession in 1990, as you may remember, the Cold War being over, the military downsizing, defense contractors moving out of the state as quickly as you could possibly move. And so carbon emissions were much lower than they would normally have been. So we picked a very low guideline. We dropped below that, in fact, substantially below that, about 12 years ago with the complete move to natural gas. That was not enough. So as we've discussed several different times, the state is now not using natural gas as a renewable resource as it had been previously for the previous 80 years. But of course, we're buying coal and keeping Diablo Canyon open and all that kind of neat stuff, but that's neither here nor there. So what 2133 is requiring is that by 2030, we move our required cuts below what our emissions of 1990. So below that, currently the law is 40%, and we're moving that to 55%. In cities, communities, government agencies, large employers, small employers who show that they are not reaching those standards will face regulatory issues like you previously have never faced regulatory problems. So by one estimate cited by the Legislative Analyst's Office, which anybody that knows anything about the legislature knows, legislative analyst is hired and fired by the Speaker of the Assembly, even though they are very highly thought of. So you're not getting someone that is a extremist on one end or the other. One estimate that they have is that there will need to be 17 million cars removed and not replaced from the roads in California. So that's about 1 out of every 2 vehicles, almost 1 out of every 2 vehicles in California are currently in daily operation. So the bill has been considered before. It has been, this bill was actually killed completely in the legislature to get it out of committee, to get it back onto the floor. They needed to do a full gut and amend on a bill that had moved through the policy process. So it will need to go through 2 votes, one in the Assembly and one in the State Senate. We'll need you to contact, if you are so inclined, contact the both members of the legislature and go and talk to them about that. But there is currently no economy in the world that is attempting a 55% cut in carbon emissions within an 8-year span. And the science on that is very iffy if that can even be achieved. There's not enough productive capacity between now and 2030 to actually produce the vehicles needed to replace 17 million gas and natural gas powered vehicles. There's not enough power. There's not enough energy generation. As we've talked about previously, the state of California, it has had 48 seconds in which the electrical grid has been powered and has been 100% renewable. And you'd be looking at needing days and weeks and months of at 100% renewability to achieve that. So it's going to be a very, very difficult task. By difficult, I mean expensive for all of us to consider and move on. And so that's why we are urging you to contact your legislator, our legislators, and take some action. But happy to discuss that as well.
Anthony?
Thank you, Jeff. There are no questions. Hold on one second. We did have another question on AB 1395, and
Yes.
that is, can we assume the speaker revived this because there has been closed door meetings to rally support for it?
So it was revived, and so a couple things. Yes, absolutely. No, this was revived at the request of the governor. The governor announced 2 weeks ago that he was having private meetings with a series of environmental action groups that had sent him a public letter that had been published in most of the major newspapers in California on this issue. So he has been privately negotiating in public. About a week ago, he announced his framework. We discussed it here. And one of the things that we were concerned about was that the framework did not actually include legislation. Friday, technically, is the last day to introduce legislation. And so this was about as close as you can get to the final day to introduce legislation as is physically possible. So this is, but in any case, yep. No, that's an exact the exact reason why this legislation was introduced.
Thank you, Jeff. And then we did have one question on AB 2133, and that is, are there penalties that businesses would be assessed associated with this bill if we don't achieve the results that the state has set?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that you have to think about are, for instance, the South Coast Air Quality and they're not even penalties, they're just requirements. So for instance, many local agencies have had to adopt standards that if you take out a building permit to improve your business or any dwelling that you own in any capacity, that you have to replace all natural gas fired appliances. Any appliance that isn't electric, you have to replace it completely. So if you in many jurisdictions want to upgrade your an appliance or two in your kitchen, or want to somehow restore your laundry room and decide that you need to have some sort of county or city permit, then as part of that, then yeah, you would have to demonstrate that you replaced absolutely everything in your house. So you'd have to replace your furnace, your air conditioning unit, possibly your oven. This is a very, very real thing. And if you don't do that, they can't issue the permit. And so in many cases, you can't sell a house with unpermitted improvements. So and that's just one of many. Most businesses and most smart manufacturers and manufacturers in Corona have air quality management equipment in their building to manage their VOC and other emissions. Those that technology almost exclusively is run by natural gas. There is no other technology to manage of, for instance, volatile chemical emissions. And so you would have your permits to operate in Corona retracted. So, I mean, that's just right straight looking at it. I mean, you could not manufacture or use volatile chemicals in many circumstances. I'm not going to say most or all, but this is huge. This is not like kidding around. This is, and by the way, these arguments have been made. This legislation has been tabled before. This legislation in this case has actually been killed by this legislature. So this legislature is changing its mind after having told the public it was going down a certain policy path. Yeah, it's very damaging.
Thank you so much, Jeff. There are no further questions.
So Jeff, has the governor indicated that this is a priority for 2133 is a priority for him and he's willing to sign it?
This is part of the 5 bills that he demanded
Okay.
be reintroduced. Yeah, this
Gotcha.
this is, and by the way, he could have announced this at any point. So it's not like this came up at the last minute. This definitely is the residue of design, as we say in the business. So basically to avoid public discussions just like we're having.
Basically, he didn't have to announce it anyways. He could have just done it.
Yeah, that's the flip side of it. Sure. Yeah, he could have just done it too.
Okay. All right.
All right. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you, Jeff. Just to follow up, there is some good news, believe it or not. We did, as a chamber, organize and helped kill 2840, which was a bill that essentially would ban warehouse and logistics centers. And it doesn't sound like that one's coming back, but we have 2 more days to keep an eye on it. But that was a great success story of our efforts. We turned out one of the largest coalitions against it, our chamber, and to testify on it. And it was successful and it still is. So, all right, let's move on. So we've talked about our assembly member and our senator and their contact information. There it is there. Maybe, Anthony, we can put it up before we get off the call again when I adjourn the meeting, so folks can write that down. So to wrap things up, if nobody has anything else, I want to thank our sponsor for today's meeting, UFC Gym. No matter your age or athletic ability, beat the routine and train at the caliber of world champions. Learn more at ufcgym.com. If you'd like to sponsor another one of these meetings, please contact the chamber, and please join us next week, August 31st, and we'll be giving you more important updates. And lastly, Anthony, can you throw that one screen back up again in case folks didn't get it? If you don't get it and you need it, just call the chamber. We'll get it over to you. All right, folks, have a great rest of the summer. We'll see you on the 31st of August. Meeting's adjourned.